What's up, everybody? On today's video, we're going to talk about the top 10 best small towns in Florida. Before we talk about the best small towns in Florida for 2023, we're going to talk about a few towns that did not make the list. And most importantly, we're going to explain to you why these towns did not make our list. Bonita Springs did not make the list. It's not a small town anymore, and while it remains charming and has a downtown, it has like all the characteristics of a small town. The population in Bonita Springs is now approaching something like 80,000 people, and that is too big to be considered a small town. And it's also surrounded by Southwest Florida. It's jammed between Naples and Fort Myers. There's too much new construction, way too much road traffic. It's impossible to consider Bonita Springs a small town, even though it's got all the characteristics a small town would want to have. And if it wasn't for that urban sprawl, Bonita Springs was just the little core of the city, it would definitely be on this list. And while it's a great little place to live, it's definitely not a small town. At least not in the year 2023. It's just too big. Another city that will not make the list is Mount Dora. It's a beautiful little town right outside of Orlando. Orlando has swallowed up a lot of small little towns, and a lot of people have moved in, and a lot of those people fall into the category of what we like to call Karens, rude snobs, just big city attitudes, to where even if we were going to ignore the fact that Mount Dora has been swallowed up by Orlando, the vibes there are no longer a small, friendly town. It's not really a small town. It's a place that's been overrun with rude, snobby people. And despite the fact it's safe, it's clean, it's beautiful, it's historic, and all of that, the vibes in this town have really went to crap. Many years ago, it would have been on our list, but due to the fact that Orlando keeps growing and expanding, it's almost like a lot of these small towns are being swallowed up by big cities. Winter Gardens, Florida, another beautiful small town that has grown way out of the small town league and is now like a medium-sized city, also in the Orlando area. It's beautiful, it's romantic, beautiful oak trees, beautiful historic buildings. Above a booming population and a lot of growth, it can't be considered a small town anymore. Umatilla will not be on our list. Despite the fact it's outside of the urban sprawl of Orlando, and it really is a small town surrounded by woods and agricultural areas, I had an interesting comment from a subscriber recently saying, "Jose, could an African American or Indian family move to this town?" And the answer is possibly their experience will not be the same. And when it comes to towns that are just that backwards and that hostile to outsiders, I have to really think twice before I put them on this list, because it is true that if your town is great for some people, well, it should be great for everybody. Does that mean I'm going to become a complete PC on my videos? Absolutely not. That leaves me two options. I can either completely become a PC baby, or I can pretty much not have a YouTube channel, since that would be the case for like 90% of these towns. If I were just to measure everybody with the same stick of what if an African American family were to watch this list, would it be the same for them? And sadly, the answer would be no, but that's not my fault. I'm just the person making the list. So while it's a very valid point, I can only really weigh that in on like 10 to 20% of my measuring score, because at the end of the day, the African American community is only like 10 to 15% of my audience as well. I'm not going to get extreme with that, but I do recognize a place like Umatilla probably would make my list of the top 10 best small towns for a white family. But if you're like Asian or Hispanic or African American, yeah, that may not really fall in the top 10 list of places you want to end up in. So, hey, it's not my fault. This person makes a solid point, but what am I supposed to do about it, you know? Inverness, Florida is not on the list. Inverness, Florida would be on this list under all categories. It is a perfect town. However, the overdose rate in Citrus County, and Inverness sits in the heart of Citrus County, is 80 out of 100,000. That means you're more likely to overdose in Inverness and Citrus County as a whole than you are to be shot and murdered in Detroit. Now, Detroit doesn't make any top 10 best lists because of its murder rate. So when we talk about white privilege, well, why would we grab a town like Inverness that sits in a county with just a high overdose rate and look the other way and put Citrus County on all my best list and just completely ignore the analytic of overdose rate? The answer is no, we're not going to do that. There's a problem with the overdose rate in Citrus County, and not only Citrus County, but a huge section of Hernando, Pasco, all these counties of Florida. North of Tampa, the overdose rates are through the roof. It's not acceptable, and they're worse than the murder rates in Detroit. So we're not going to overlook that, and it really hurts me because, hey, I have probably put a lot of realtors in Citrus County. I've probably put their kids through college by how many videos I've made promoting Citrus County and helping people move to that area, and I really hope they can sort out this problem. But I can't put Citrus County on my list of top 10 best small towns when they have a overdose rate that's higher than the murder rate in Detroit. They have to fix that, and it really hurts me. And like I said, I have done so much to promote this county. Literally, I have put realtors' kids through college in this part of the state of Florida by how much I've done to promote this area, always putting them towards the top of my list. But that ends today. With these new statistics on overdose rates, this part of Florida isn't going to make our top 10 list, and I know it's going to hurt you like it hurts me. Finally, Miami Springs is not on the list. Miami Springs is a small town surrounded by a metropolitan area, but it's a small town. It's a functioning small town, beautiful homes, historic district. It's in every aspect. With 15,000 people, a small town. About 50% white, 50% Hispanic. Miami Springs police force does not play. They know everybody who lives there. If I put a small town in the Orlando or Tampa area on my list, nobody says nothing. But preliminarily, we took some polls on our channel, and people were upset that I threw Miami Springs on there because it's part of Southeast Florida. It's still a small town. Why can't it be on this list? Let alone the narrative that Hispanic cities are bad and dangerous. Absolutely not false. Miami-Dade County had the lowest overdose rate last year, and for any large city, some of the lowest murder rates for Miami and its suburbs. So the notion that Miami is a crime-ridden place is really just anti-Hispanic rhetoric. So on the 2023 list, I'm not going to cut anybody slack. If your town's dangerous because it's got a high murder rate, it's not going to be on the list. If your town's Hispanic or black, I'm not going to exclude it from the list because people have a bad feeling against those places. If your town has a high overdose rate, there's no white privilege on this list. If you have a high overdose rate, that entire section of the state was wiped off the list. I don't care how nice and pretty your town looks. If you have a drug overdose problem, you might want to address that before you end up on my list. The same thing, if an African American family can't move to your town because it's overly racist, well, that's not going to end up on my list either. It might be great for the white people, but if the African American or an Asian family were to move there, they would get ran out of town, then your town's not going to make my list. There's no more white privilege on my list. I'm not going to become a PC baby and start crying out discrimination left and right, but also you have to be realistic. Number one, the best place to live in Florida is Marathon. When it comes to small towns, you can't beat living on an island in the Florida Keys. Best nature access you're going to get anywhere. Best fishing. Incredible warm weather throughout the year. Marathon is really a dream place to live. The vibes are beachside, chill, relaxed. It's not a place you have to worry too much about your safety. Everybody there is either on vacation or retired, enjoying the beautiful tropical breeze. I'm also not going to cut broke people any slack on this video. To live in a great place, a top 10 list of best places, you might want to have a bigger wallet. If you're broke, I can't make a list of top 10 best towns for broke people because that just sounds wrong. So yeah, these towns are going to be fairly expensive for the most part. Good things cost a lot of money. So again, I can't really cater to everybody's audience. I have to be fair. I have to be straightforward with these towns. There's a lot of criteria to be the best place to live. Definitely islands are going to be high on this list because they have a lot of safety. And of course, number two is Anna Maria Island, the northern tip of Anna Maria Island. You have access to beaches on all sides because it's an island. You're at the mouth of Tampa Bay, some of the most incredible Florida-themed restaurants in the entire state. access to Longboat Key stretching all the way to Siesta Key. These are some of the best rated beaches in the country. Then if you have a boat, it just puts you on a whole nother level of things you can do. You can head up to Clearwater, you can head into Tampa Bay, or you could head into Southwest Florida beaches because the access to water here is incredible. Beach vibes, people biking, enjoying little thrift shops and little cute little stores, everything coastal themed. Definitely one of the best places to live in Florida, and of course, extraordinarily expensive. Fort DeSoto is also there. The beaches here are usually beautiful and clear, and the fishing is amazing. Anna Maria Island deserves to be on this list. Moving on to number 3, New Smyrna Beach. To the south of Daytona is this beautiful historic beach town with some of the most incredible beach vibes in the entire state of Florida. The homes are beautiful and historic. It's integrated beautifully between historic buildings and residential properties. It flows smoothly right up until the beach. One of the best things you can do here is you're actually allowed to drive your vehicle on the beach for like $20, but it's worth it. There's very few places in Florida where you can still do that. The place is well kept, clean, safe. The people are friendly. Beach vibes are the essence of this place. It definitely deserves credit as a small town. And you're not far from Daytona Beach, where you can enjoy a lot of incredible events throughout the entire year. Orlando is also not far away. It's situated in a perfect place. Lots of shark attacks. Number 4 is Fernandina Beach. While there's a lot of problems pushing back towards Duval County into Jacksonville, Amelia Island is an exception to the rule. The crime rates here are low, it's safe, it's clean. The vibes are friendly, enjoyable atmosphere. Families with their kids eating ice cream, getting burgers by the beach. The water here has a lot of dolphins, a lot of whales. There's not usually clear water here, and that's definitely one of the downsides, but there's enough dolphins in nature that you can actually enjoy being on the water. Incredible beach vibes, historic buildings, and a very relaxed, almost feels like the Carolinas here. Nonetheless, it is one of the best places to live in Florida. Highly rated, known for their restaurants and incredible beach vibes. It definitely deserves to be on the list of our best small towns in Florida for 2023. Number 5 is Dunedin, Florida. So you guys are okay with a Tampa metro area small town. Oh, but it's a problem if it's a Miami metro area small town, right? Dunedin is beautiful, and yes, it is part of the urban sprawl of the Tampa Bay area, but it's distinctive in its ways, and it feels like a small town. Despite the fact it's surrounded by a huge metropolitan area, it still has that small town feel. The vibes here are incredible. The atmosphere is fun. The fact that it's surrounded by the Tampa Bay area doesn't mean that this place feels urban. You can kind of sense the small town atmosphere. The people are warm, they're friendly, the speed of life is a little bit slower. And of course, the beach vibes that you would expect from a Florida beach town. Keep in mind, these are Florida small towns. A lot of them are going to be on the beach. Lots of vibes. These aren't sleepy little towns. There's a lot of activity, things to do throughout the whole year. Moving on to number 6, Rosemary Beach. Along the Florida Panhandle are some of the whitest sands and clearest water. You're going to find beautiful, deep emerald green beaches throughout the entire year. You're not going to find so much of that in Southwest Florida. Other parts of the state, the water is never clear like it is in the Florida Panhandle. Now, this is a newer development, and real estate here pushes well into the millions. It's not for the faint of wallet, basically. You got to be loaded to live here. But the people that are fortunate enough to live here are going to wave at you, ride a bicycle, and walk a poodle, and they're in a complete ambiance of wealth, safety, security, enjoying the luxuries that they can afford with their money. The town has beautiful events, food trucks come out, and their downtown looks like something out of Europe. It's a small town. It may be new, but it definitely belongs on our list, and it's something unique. If you have that kind of money and you want to enjoy living in a small town but not with broke people, consider that. Number 7 is Marco Island, Florida. The population of Marco Island makes it a small town. The crime rate is so low in Marco Island that the police officers have been caught doing extracurricular activities with all their free time on the clock. What a perfect problem to have. There's actually two Publixes, or at least there was two Publixes. I think one's a Winn-Dixie now. But regardless, one Publix for an island is all you need. The building codes and the elevation requirements for Marco Island meant that after Hurricane Ian, which brought a storm surge on the island, damages were minimal and the island was able to recover incredibly fast. Despite the fact a storm surge came in here just like it did in Fort Myers Beach, not as much, to be honest, but still, they survived great because their building codes are very strict, and it showed investors that this is a place that can withstand some pretty strong hurricanes. Number 8 is High Springs, Florida. Right outside of Gainesville is Jenny Springs, where happy white women go to swim. And High Springs is not too far away. It's a beautiful, clean, historic town, beautiful Victorian homes, all the Florida vibes you could want. And on top of all of that, there is a Publix not too far away in Alachua County. Alachua County had one of the lowest overdose rates in the state of Florida. This kept a lot of great small towns in this region of Florida off our list. So congratulations to Alachua County for keeping their overdose rates low. And this is the reason why this town was able to filter through all the other towns that are apparently just as nice, but dealing with a problem that this particular county, Alachua, isn't dealing with. There's still a little bit of homelessness. It's not perfect, and there aren't many jobs out here. It's really just old Florida vibes. Number 9 is Apalachicola. The region surrounding Tallahassee has one of the lowest overdose rates in the country. That means that these towns are fairly clean. The real estate market in Apalachicola has been expensive for a while now, and it's really a low-key spot for people looking to kind of retire quietly. Despite the region being kind of isolated, you can still find some Cuban restaurants, just little touches you wouldn't expect in a small town, like newer hotels, hospitalities, amenities. This area is so isolated. It's a great place to just hide away from the world. It's not close to anything good in particular. Like I said, it's more of like isolation, but it's beautiful, it's calm, it's peaceful, and if you just want to get away from everything, it's a great place to do it. This particular region of Florida is not expected to have that huge influx of tourists or people moving in like other parts of the state. Number 10 is Destin, Florida. It was our most highly rated town when I did my surveys on my channel for the best small towns in Florida. Caught me off guard because I almost was going to leave Destin off the list. But clearly, the emerald clear waters and the events that happen here throughout the year that bring people to enjoy themselves, have fun in the city, means it's important to a lot of people. The beaches here are beautiful. The sand is white. Emerald clear waters throughout the entire year. Easy accessible parking to these beaches. Hard to find in other parts of Florida. Destin is definitely a destination in Florida a lot of people are looking at. It's beautiful. It's calm. One of the downsides is there's not too many large cities in this region of the state. So if you need access to a larger city, it kind of feels a little isolated. All right, there it is. Those are the top 10 best small towns in Florida for the year 2023. This year, not only did I make up this list with the help of my beautiful wife, Catherine the Great, but you guys, the subscribers, influence exactly which towns made it on the list. Do you think it's a surprise that I had to exclude Hernando County and Citrus County because their overdose rates are just that high? I don't think it's an extreme measure. I think when we look at analytics, we focus so much on crime and homicide when people make these top 10 lists, safety, of course, and crime, real estate values, stuff like that. Schools is huge for a lot of people. Being in Florida, most people moving here don't care about schools. They're either retired or they don't have kids. If you have kids, Florida's not the best state. Good schools have never really been a huge influencing factor when I talk about Florida. But these overdose rates in the parts of Florida that have the highest concentration of overdose rates, I've had to exclude this whole entire region because even when Kate and I used to travel to Citrus County, we would notice it like all the time. I just didn't realize how bad the situation was there. And it turns out that these counties in Florida, like Citrus, that have a huge elderly population, a lot of them are getting medication from the government, and then they sell that to supplement their lifestyle there because they're on limited income. So you have a lot of affordable retirement leads to a lot of people with a lot of medications that they get from their insurance companies or their Social Security, whatever. And now that they use that to make money because they're on a limited income, a lot of times they'll pay people to mow the grass or to do whatever with whatever they got. And that leads to just a huge influx of prescriptions entering the hands of people who shouldn't have had it. And that's really what's led to Citrus County having just a large overdose rate. Unfortunately, because a lot of the elderly people are doing that to survive, elderly drug dealers, unfortunately, it's pretty much destroyed their community. And it's ensured that I can't put these towns on this list because it's not your typical problem. It's kind of like a regional problem. Just like the Deep South has regional problems, Texas border with the Mexican side being so close also has regional problems that keeps their towns from prospering. Here in Florida, these elderly drug dealers are getting all these prescription drugs, and they're not using them, they're selling them, they're trading them for labor around their properties. And this influx of all these prescription medications is what's led to this area having just a huge problem. So these areas that have a lot of affordable retirement in Florida have actually become some of the worst places to live because the elderly people are getting all these drugs. And I see it with my dad all the time. Every time I go to my dad's house, he has like a medicine drawer, and I look through it and I'm like, oh my gosh, why are they giving you this stuff? And I throw it away for him. Dear elderly patient, does your leg hurt? Oh yeah, of course, I'm 85 years old. Oh, here, take these. They'll make you feel better. It's a really shady thing that's going on in Florida, and they're making a crap load of money, but it's slowly eating away at the young people that are getting their hands on this stuff. As you guys know, I have never been a fan of affordable retirement in Florida. I've spoke out about it many times on our channel. I've just never really got elaborate into the details of it, and maybe that will be a great topic in the future. Seems like these doctors and these greedy pharmacists are pretty much destroying our beautiful state of Florida in the areas where there's huge concentrations of affordable elderly retirement have actually become the worst places in the state of Florida. I always thought it was because there wasn't just enough work in these areas. Turns out that the access to prescription medications is what's really led to the problem, and the fact that these people that are moving here on an affordable budget, they don't really realize how expensive it is to live in Florida, and they find their prescription medications as an outlet to make extra income. And these overdose rates are outrageous. You go figure that St. Louis and Detroit, most dangerous cities in the country, their murder rates are under 67, 68. You're in the 80s with the overdose rates in Florida. It means you're more likely to overdose in Citrus County than you are to get killed in Detroit. That is absolutely not acceptable. That's a huge problem, and I'm not going to overlook it. Places like, I recently asked my subscribers, which one of these cities do you think has the greatest drug problems? And they said Miami, Tampa, Orlando are fueling the Florida drug problem. And then we did a video where we looked up all these analytics and statistics, and it turns out that Orlando, Tampa, Miami actually have the lowest overdose rates in the entire state of Florida, and that the rural places actually have the biggest problem. But you have a bunch of YouTubers telling people that it's the Democrat cities that are overrun with drugs, and that the solution to their problems is moving to Republican places. We break down these analytics, and it was shocking to see that the complete opposite was true. These elderly communities that are mostly Republican voting are having a huge overdose problem. A place like Miami doesn't have that problem, but Miami usually votes Republican, so it's not so much a political thing. It's also like an anti-Hispanic sentiment that people have, where every single day I look through my comments, people say Miami is so dangerous, people are moving out of Miami because it's dangerous. But when you look at Miami's murder rate, even the city of Hialeah, which is a suburb of Miami, has one of the lowest murder rates of any city its size. El Paso, Texas, another Hispanic city, also has one of the lowest murder rates in the country. But it's this anti-Hispanic sentiment that it's just fueling what people believe, but it's not true. Just because you believe it doesn't mean it's true. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I don't have any political affiliation, so I don't care who is who or what is what. I want to give the facts to how they are. If they make a city look good, it doesn't matter to me. Like, my job is just to give you guys accurate information, and that's not always the most popular thing for me to do. Some people don't like it. And as a creator, it absolutely frustrates me that the truth doesn't really make you popular, because people want to hear what they want to hear, and if you tell them the truth, then it's almost like you're losing your audience. But like I said, right now, when I look at these statistics, what I'm seeing is that the cities actually have the lowest murder rates. The cities actually have the lowest overdose rates. And maybe many years back, that wasn't the case, but things are changing rapidly. Like, 2020 flipped the world upside down. It's probably going to take a while for people to catch on to these analytics, because a lot of the YouTubers that are out there right now are catering to the masses and the popularity. So they're not going to give you a message that's not popular. And I know it hasn't made me popular, but in reality, this is the way these analytics are looking. One of the comments that I read the most every single day is people saying that it's always the black areas that have problems. Actually, in the state of Florida, let's take overdoses. The rural area around Tallahassee, which is predominantly African American, has the lowest overdose rates. So those people that think that it's black areas that always have the worst problems, that may have been true many years ago, but right now in 2023, with the new analytics that are coming out, that's not exactly the case. And it may take a few years for people to catch on to this, or it's one of those things they're just going to push underneath the rug, or perhaps, like a lot of people say, it's been like that for years, but there's just this rhetoric against Hispanics and blacks. And on my channel, I'm going to try to not be influenced by any of it coming from any direction. But this channel to me is not a popularity contest. This channel to me is about exploring, finding information, and then bringing you statistics combined with real life experience as information to use so that you can make the best choices possible. This top 10 list has been the most difficult that I've done in a very long time, because in the past I just went by oak trees and buildings. Now I'm looking a lot deeper into these towns, because I'm thinking about the long-term effect that moving to one of these places could have on you. And I realized that things are not exactly cover photo. Like, you have to just dig a little bit deeper. Right now, one of the most popular videos on my channel is the top 10 best small towns in Alabama. That video is getting a lot of views, and I wish I could go back and tell people, hey, I don't agree with this anymore, but I was looking at historic buildings and rivers and mountains and beautiful buildings, and I overlooked all the social aspects of these places. Now, when I go back and I look at that top 10 list, it's getting a lot of views on the internet, and it's my #1 trending video right now. It's been like that for a few weeks, and I kind of think to myself, like, I almost want to delete it because I don't agree with that anymore. So in the future, when I make these top 10 lists, I just have to be a little bit more conscious of exactly how moving to these towns is going to affect people. And if, let's say, a town is perfect for 96% of the people moving there, but if the town has a racist past and almost literally present, could an African-American family watching my video watch that video and digest the information the same way as everybody else? I'm not going to say I'm going to become like a complete PC baby on my channel, but there's times where you just have to draw the line and say, hey, with this problem, you can't make it on this list. On my channel, you're going to get a different level of consciousness when I make these lists than on other people's channels. Like, I watch YouTubers and their realtors, and clearly you can see that the places that they're recommending are the places that are most adjacent to them. So if you watching their video wanted to buy a house, then their top 10 list is more of a commercial for the areas they're trying to sell. So the information's not real, and I don't want to do that. And that's why I've been really hesitant with me and Katie becoming realtors, because I don't want to feel like my content is now aimed at getting me to sell you a house. I feel like if I just keep it real and I keep it raw and I say things that most people wouldn't want to hear, then I'm being honest with my audience and not playing favorites. If all of a sudden this video right here gets 500,000 views, I hope it gets that. I don't think it will, but if it did get 500,000 views, this video will bring hundreds of thousands of dollars to specific realtors in specific towns. It's going to change their lives. Like, I've had videos that do that for people. I've had videos where I'll make a top 10 list and I get emails later like, hey dude, I sold 5 houses or something in my town because of your video. And you're just like, wow, that video had that much of an effect. So I'm very conscious of the content that I create, especially these top 10 lists, and how people are going to consume it, because there's people that will literally move to a town because it was on their favorite YouTuber's top 10 list. That's a thing nowadays. Not sure why, but it is. And I'm actually really afraid to make these lists because I know the impact it's going to have on my audience. And a lot of times I feel like it's almost like I'm afraid now to make these lists because I know it's going to have so much effect on other people's lives. Like that top 10 list of Alabama, I look back on that list now, and these are the 10 prettiest looking towns or whatever in Alabama. But dude, like if somebody in California watches that video, moves to Hartselle, Alabama, I think it was the first town I put on there, dude, they're ready for an experience of a lifetime that they're not, they should have probably not got their information from a YouTube video. But that's where we're at. That's where we're at. It's crazy. It's sometimes it's overwhelming for me as a creator to know that if the video does get this many views, it's going to have that much of an impact on so many people's lives. But I've seen it happen time and time again. I've made videos saying that a town is backwards and racist, and then I've had people say, oh, good, I'm going to move there to be around like-minded people. So sometimes as a creator, you don't always understand the full implications of the work you do. But the most upsetting thing is to watch other creators and you can see right through their intentions, and they're not always good. A lot of times these YouTubers, they might live on a beach town or a big city, and they're telling people to move to small towns. Like, hold on a minute, where do you live? Oh, you live in a beach town? Oh, you don't live in a small town. You don't live in one of those little hick towns out there. So why are you telling people to move there? You live in a beach town. Or you live in a medium-sized, large city. So why are you telling people to move to small towns? A lot of these YouTubers are telling people, oh, move to a small town up there. Yo, but you live in a beach town. So why don't you tell people first, hey, I live here. And I've been doing that, and it's been difficult. Believe me, it's been difficult. But I've done it everywhere I've lived. I live right here, okay? From this standing right here, I'm telling you this. But don't tell people to move to a small town if you live in a beach town. Like, come on, bro. These YouTubers are telling people to move to small towns, and America's future is now small towns. But they don't live in no small town. They live in a big city, a beach town. They got stores nearby. They live in an area that doesn't vote the way they're telling people to vote. I mean, it's just a pile of crap. I'm a YouTuber, and I'm going to be honest, most YouTubers are going to live in a beach town, in a gated community for their safety. We have to have the absolute fastest internet possible. You can't get that in a small town. So it just blows my mind to also see creators who live in these super sophisticated cities with fast internet, grocery stores, luxury shopping, luxury communities near the beach like I do, telling people to move to small towns. Like, dude, you don't live in a small town. Why? You know what I mean? It doesn't even make sense that you would be. I live in a beach town. Just be honest about it. It's very odd and perplexing to see a YouTuber who lives in a blue state, for example, telling people that they need to leave blue states and move to a red state. You don't live in a red state. You live in a blue state, and you live like near the beach and stuff. Like, just be honest with your audience about how you're actually living. And just be honest with people, because a lot of these times, like if a YouTuber is a realtor, it's already like a red flag. When I first started my YouTube channel, I used to show a lot of historic buildings and red brick buildings next to oak trees. And I stopped doing that a long time ago. Have I lost some subscribers? Sure. But I feel like I'm using my platform to help people and give information that's good for them. Now, does that mean that Inverness is a horrible town? No, it's not a horrible town. It's a beautiful town. I love it. I would move there. You know what I mean? But until that problem changes, I can't leave it as on my top 10 list of places, because people are going to move their kids and they're going to be in an environment that could cause them harm. I'm just trying to be as responsible as a creator as I can be, and not be like some of these creators who are on one side living in one way but telling people that they need to live in another way, which is not according to the way they're living. It's also a lot of YouTubers that go out there and make videos that sound interesting. They sound like they know what they're talking about, but when they cover an area that I've lived in, you can see that they're just making it up as they go. I've never done that. You know, I'm not the Google Maps image guy. I'm the out on the streets seeing it with my own flesh type of guy. And then there's like all the other creators that are just knocking off my content. Like I've had one creator out of Southeast Florida that has persistently been knocking off my content because he had nothing. He didn't come from Florida. He came from another state. He had no idea of anything in Florida. So he just started knocking off my content shamelessly. And I've never really exposed that guy. I don't really care to expose him. I can't even stand to look at his photo when I see him on my timeline. But it's one of those deals where like, dude, where's the consciousness of these creators when they're making these top 10 lists? You know why I've never made a video about Utah? Because I've never been to Utah. I went to California and they told me they were communist and it was dangerous. In San Francisco, you're going to get your windows smashed and broken. And I go to San Francisco and I'm like, wow, this place is amazing. I went to San Diego. I loved it. I'd move there if I could afford it. It's beautiful. And then the same people telling people to leave San Francisco and San Diego are telling them to move to Austin, Texas. I go to Austin, Texas, and in a 30-minute recording, we saw 5 cars that had their windows broken. So it's like what they're telling people is not only misleading, it's the complete opposite of the truth. The places they're telling people to move are actually places that have the problems that they're attributing to the places they're telling people to move. It's just a huge mess. It's a load of crap. It's what these old people want to hear, so they're pitching woo at old people to get subscribers. I'm going to keep it real. Is it going to make me popular? Probably not. But at least you know you're getting a real freaking person talking to you. All YouTubers have to clickbait at some point. I clickbait with my opinion and my personal antics. A lot of YouTubers clickbait with wrong information that some people listen to it, believe it, and make decisions based off of that. I'm not trying to be that. Would that get me more views, more subscribers? Absolutely. But again, you're getting a real package when you see my videos. Me personally, would I move to any of these towns on this list that I personally made? I want to live near a Starbucks, near a Publix, in a big city where I have access to all the restaurants I want. In a small town, options are limited, and I've got used to a lifestyle, especially traveling from city to city, that I expect in demand to have like everything that I want within a very close proximity of where I live. So like if I were to move to a small town that didn't have a Publix, didn't have a Starbucks, didn't have the types of ethnic foods that I want, I would not be happy there. But even I myself, when I saw the OD rates by county and I saw how bad the situation really was in Citrus County, even I, who had plans to eventually buy a property there, am like really reconsidering it because it's really too much. And Florida is a very fast changing place. A lot of cities, they have like, 3%, 5% gradual changes in their statistics. Florida is like an absolutely wild place. I mean, like literally Citrus County went from being like one of the safest, nicest places to now having some of the worst statistics. Miami used to be many years ago a really dangerous bad place. Now Miami has some of the best statistics in the whole entire country. Like if you look at crime rates for Miami now, and overdose rates are extremely low, and you're like, whoa, like Miami used to have a reputation for being a bad place, but what happens is that people, they're not up with the times, so they're thinking, well, I moved out of Miami 15, 20 years ago and it was like this, so they think it's still like that, and if you try to tell them, no, Miami is actually one of the best places to live. Like I just ran into a lady in Ocala, we started up a real nice conversation. She used to live in Miami, she absolutely hates Miami, absolutely, like, and I'm trying to tell her, like, right now, Miami is actually safer, has less problems than where you're currently living. And she didn't want to hear it at all. She just like cut me off, didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to, like, we were having a nice conversation until we started to talk about Miami. Because when she left Miami, it was horrible. And now Miami has lower crime rates than where she was living. And she didn't want to hear it. And that's like a lot of times people just put up that wall, like, I don't want to hear it. No, just, and that attitude really, a lot of people have that attitude, but it's really not attitude that you want to have. Misleading YouTube videos and misleading information is why I ended up in Alabama. Okay, that's why I ended up over there, because the YouTubers weren't really being honest. They were trying to portray it was this beautiful place. Oh, they forgot to mention it was racist. Oh, we forgot to say that, huh? Didn't we? So I've been on both sides of that. Like I have seen how I have had misleading information affect my life. Now these new statistics come out and Alabama has the worst everything, the worst life expectancy, the highest murder rates. All that is compiling Because when I first moved to Montgomery, I started telling you guys how bad it was. They're like, oh no, it's great. Look at these statistics from 2 years ago. But now we look at the statistics for the year that I was there, and we realize, like, wow, it really was as bad as I was saying. But people don't really keep up with the times, you know. It's important for you to constantly be renovating your ideas. That's why we travel so much, go back to the same places. And I see places that get better with time incredibly fast, and I see places that just keep getting worse. And that's why me and Katie are always on the road, so that when we make these videos, like, it's really like I'm backing up my content with real life travels, real life information. You know, I'm actually on the road seeing these things. So when I make an edited video, it's not something I found on Wikipedia, and it's not a file video from the library. Everything here is original content that we sourced through our hard work. Hope you guys liked the video.